What's up, world? Today we're going to be diving into a critical maintenance task on a 2018 Ford Edge Sport. We're going to be changing the power transfer unit fluid. Keeping fresh and top quality fluids in the PTUs of Ford's lineup of all-wheel drive vehicles is absolutely essential to longevity as well as good performance. So let's get started. So the owner's manual for the 2018 Ford Edge Sport calls for a 75 W140 gear oil, and so I'm going to use the Royal Purple MaxGear. I've had really good luck with the Royal Purple stuff, especially with their SynchroMax for manual transmissions as well as their MaxGear for differentials. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with this for the PTU on the 2018 Ford Edge Sport. And so before we get this up in the air really quick, we're going to jump online and I will show you an absolutely free tool that I have been using for years, and it has been an absolute lifesaver for different applications. All right, so we're just going to go to royalpurple.lubricantadvisor.com. It's going to bring us to this page, and then obviously you can just pick whatever your application is. So for us, we're going to pick cars. From there, you can pick your year model, then you can pick your make, and then model. And then once you have your specific make, it may give you a couple of different models depending on how your year model fell, and it's not a big deal. So sometimes you can look at a couple of different ones on there and kind of put together what you need as long as you have your owner's manual. So I'm going to pick the one at the top. And then once it takes you to the application guide, it can give you an absolute ton of different information. So you can get data sheets. It will give you applicable temperature ranges for it. It'll tell you if it's warranty compliant or not, or if it's strictly, say, like a performance-based fluid, something like that. It'll give you capacity. It will give you recommended change intervals, which that's quite a bit. I don't know if I would go that far, but it is their recommendation. Now we're going to skip over the motor oil section. We're going to go down to transfer box. And so for our transfer box, you can see that we're going to use 0.74 US quarts. And there it is. It recommends the Royal Purple MaxGear 75W140 for year-round applications. And if we want to, we can open up the spec sheet in a PDF and go through all that information. But this is really a fantastic free tool. And so if you're interested in it, again, it's just royalpurple.lubricantadvisor.com. And so that is basically where I found the recommendations for the transfer case. And again, I've had good luck out of the MaxGear and the SynchroMax stuff. All right, so outside of our Royal Purple MaxGear, we're going to need a few other items, and these are all really basic. So you can actually do this job no problem in a driveway on jack stands, ramps. Ramps will probably be the actual easiest on a Ford Edge, but you can do it either way with ramps or jack stands. So I just happen to have lived here in the shop. That way we can get a good vantage point of everything underneath the vehicle. That way, if you're doing this in a driveway, you kind of have a good idea where everything's at. And you're not sliding around your back trying to figure out where everything's at. And so you're going to need something simple just to wipe up any messes, spills, drips, whatever it is. Just use some big box paper towels, to be honest. Just something cheap and easy. And you will need some sort of thread sealer. This is the one that I prefer. It is a Loctite stick, and you could use several different ones. I will actually put an affiliate link down in the description below for all this stuff if you're interested in any of it. I really appreciate you using those links if at all possible. Also, I got the 3/8 drive ratchet handy to go with the extensions. I have a T50 Torx bit, so make sure you have a T50 handy because you will need that. It is absolutely necessary. Also, the other necessary items is a 7mm socket. This one is actually a 1/4" drive. I'm just going to use an adapter to go from 1/4 to 3/8, but you will need a 7mm for sure. And last but not least, make sure that you have some sort of eye protection, especially if you're looking up at the vehicle or laying on your back, anything like that. Eye protection is an absolute must. And additionally, go ahead and get some gloves. These are just the cheap nitriles. And you will need some way to add fluid to the PTU. And so I'm just going to use this. This is the Moto Products Power Fill. And so this is super simple. I'll show you as we go. But basically, you just can pump this up where you can use compressed air. And you go ahead and put your fluid in here. And basically, it just has a nozzle that hangs in the fill. And it just basically fills it up for you. It's super simple. But you can use anything. You can use any sort of just a small hand pump. You can use the pumps that screws onto the bottle. Now, if you do use one of the small pumps that the hose goes down into the bottle and it goes up into the fill hole for something like a PTU or a differential, might want to have a buddy handy because as the fluid comes out and these bottles get light, they tend to want to tip over and make a big mess. So just make sure that you have some way to get the fluid up into the PTU. But again, just something simple and inexpensive to transfer your fluid up into the PTU will work just fine. So I'm just going to be using what I have on hand. So I'm going to be using this little power fill unit. All right, so first thing, just to make sure that you can locate the PTU, okay, I'm going to start at the front of the vehicle and start working my way back. And so that way you won't have any issues locating. So as we work our way back, there is the black composite oil pan, and you can see got a little oil there at the drain plug. And just behind the oil drain plug, you're going to see that T50 Torx bit right there and the aluminum case. And if I spin right around here, you can see the cross member that runs underneath the exhaust. And so if we start working our way back up to the front of the vehicle, again, right behind the old drain plug, you can see that T50 Torx. So that is going to be our PTU unit right there, and that's going to be our drain plug. So very simple to find. So just want to do that just for reference in case you're laying on your back. That way you can go either from the back of the vehicle or the front. Now, if we move right over to the passenger side, you can see that we're going to have the splash shield, and there's going to be a total of 5 of those 7mm bolts. So let's go ahead and get those bolts out and see if we can make room, because the drain plug sits right up above this wiring harness. So we want to make sure that we have plenty of room for the fluid to go in and everything to be out of the way. So let's go ahead and get this down out of our way. And right here on our splash shield, you can see that we have one clip, not a big deal. So we just got our splash shield kind of hanging here. We're basically just going to swing it up out of the way. Once we swing it up out of the way, we can get to our fill plug right here. And the fill plug is going to be the first one that we remove. That way we don't create a vacuum on the PTU once we pull the drain plug out. So let's grab that T50 and go ahead and pull our fill plug. All right, so I was able to skip using my extension with the ratchet. I was able just to slide my T50 and my ratchet up behind this wiring harness, and no pressure on or unnecessary force on this electrical system right here. That was my biggest concern. I want to make sure that I wasn't affecting any of that stuff. And now, make no mistake, to break that plug loose, it was pretty tight. So I just used an old trick to where I slipped this wrench over the end of my ratchet handle and got it to break loose. So it was pretty tight. So, but it did break loose, no worries. So we're gonna go ahead and get this plug out really quick. I think at that point, a smart move is going to be to get that ratchet out of the way. And now don't be afraid to put a little force on it. Just make sure that you don't mess up that Torx head. And there's our plug, just like so. So I'm going to set that off to the side, and let's go ahead and get this thing drained. Changed angles on you a little bit there so that I can get the drain pan over here. So I did mention earlier, make sure that you got a good drain pan. And let's see if we can get this broke loose. And again, it looks like we may need to use our extension trick here for a little bit of leverage. So let's see how this goes. And it broke loose. So again, make no mistake, these fill and drain plugs are definitely tight if they've never been opened on this PTU. So, and there we go with our fluid. And so actually, it don't look too bad. Smells like differential fluid for sure, but really, it's pretty brown. I didn't save it in a pan or anything to do any sort of examination on it, but what we can do is we can take a look at that, and you can see that drain plug has quite a bit of sediment on the end of it. So we'll get it out here in the light and take a little better look at it here in just a second while that drains. All right, so there is our drain plug, and you can see that, yeah, we have quite a bit of debris on the end of that drain plug. So like I said, at 45,000 miles, I probably should have done this much sooner, but I didn't. Totally on me, but we're doing it now. So we're gonna go ahead and stick to the plan. Again, the fluid didn't look just absolutely terrible by any stretch of the imagination, but that is quite a bit of contamination on the end of that magnet. So good thing is that drain plug does have a magnet on it, so it will help a lot. I'm gonna go ahead and finish cleaning up these couple of parts real quick, drain plug and the fill plug, and go ahead and let that PTU keep dripping for a few minutes, and then we'll go ahead and get our drain plug back in. All right, so I just used a little bit of cheap brake parts cleaner to go ahead and clean this plug up really well, so you can see it come out pretty nice compared to what it was with the big glob of sediment on the end of that magnet there. So next up, I'm going to use my thread sealant, and this stuff is super simple. You just basically get it so that it's just up above the edge right there, and then you can just kind of take and wipe a little bit, a few different places on the threads, and as that drain plug threads in, it will basically smear along those threads and make sure that you're good and sealed up. So let's go ahead and get our drain plug back in. Now you can see that we're basically just down to a very slow drip here on the PTU. So I'm just going to kind of clean all this up just a little bit. Then I can go ahead and start a drain. And there is a torque specification for these drain plugs. Now, in all honesty, this doesn't have to be extremely tight because it is a pipe plug. So these are tapered. So I'm not going to be too carried away here. I'm just going to use, like I said earlier, a standard 3/8 ratchet and go ahead and get these tightened up. And that should be all we need for that. Again, I'll wipe up any excess around that plug just to make sure that everything stays clean. No dust and dirt settles on it. So there is our drain plug back into place. And so next up, let's get to filling this thing up. And this is where the power fill system really does a great job. You can see we have pressure up. I just got ahead and put that up by hand. Up. See, we just have our hook up there in our fill, and we can just open the valve, and we have fluid heading up. So I'm going to pump this up and go ahead and get this thing topped off. And there we go. We are starting to drip. So we're going to go ahead and just let that fill plug or that fill hole right there go ahead and just completely drip. That way we get it to the right capacity. And you can see that we didn't have much left out of that quart. So I'll show you that. That's about what we had in there. We were pretty much down to the very bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and get this wiped up and get our power fill out of the way, and then we'll go ahead and get the fill plug back installed into the PTU. All right, I got our fill plug all cleaned up. Same basic process, just use some cheap brake cleaner to hit it, and you can see that we did get some sediment off of it. So we're just going to take and make sure that we can seal those threads up. I'll wipe a little on there, like so, and we should be good to go. So let's go get our fill plug installed. All right, so easiest way to get this up in there, I think, is going to be just to put the fill plug on our 250, and then we can just basically use that to line everything up, like so, and get it started. And that worked. And then we can grab our 3/8. Get in behind that wiring harness. And we should be good to go there. So let's go ahead and get our splash shield back up into place. That is the fluid change on the PTU or power transfer unit on the 2018 Ford Export. So listen, I really do hope you got some good information out of this video, or hope you just enjoyed hanging out in the shop with us. If you haven't already, you know the deal. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. And as always, jump in for another ride.